welcome to Mental Health Mondays. I'm Heidi Gaiman from ilovemyshepherd.com. And at Mental Health Mondays, we talk about just some basic ideas about mental health, some advocacy for what you might need. Feel free to ask questions at any time. This month in January, we're talking about asking for help. And this is going to be the concluding session for our Asking for Help series. And next month, we'll move on to emotions. And for a couple months, we'll be talking about some spectrums of emotions and making peace with some of our emotions, as well as, what place they have in our lives. All right, so today we're going to talk about breaking down some obstacles for asking for help. It's really important that we recognize that there's lots of obstacles. That's one step. I mean, in our first session, we talked about why ask for help. In another session, we talked about who, might be a good source of asking for help for different things. And then in another session, we talked about some how-tos, So this is let's focus on some obstacles and what we're going to do with them. So if you guys can think of any obstacles, feel free to throw them up in the comments, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, Instagram, whatever. I want to hear the obstacles that you've encountered or that other people have encountered. A lot of times these are contextual. It might look different, the obstacles that you face in your setting than what I face in my setting. Urban, rural, geographic, what places and spaces we have available to us, what resources are available to us, but also what kind of family we grew up in, and maybe internal obstacles that we face. So we're going to talk about some broad spectrum obstacles today. And then if you have some more specific ones, please tell us. We love it. There's always a place on the I Love My Shepherd About page that you can also share your story with us at any time, and maybe a little bit of how the resources we've offered with mental health and advocacy have been useful to you as well. So breaking down obstacles. Obstacle number one, family dynamics. This is a big one. I actually believe it's probably the biggest. You can break out of your family dynamics. You can look totally different than your family. But the reality is that our families shape so much of the way we see the world. And this is a good thing. This is a good thing of God, that He creates us in families. He has a plan for families. He redeems families. He does so much in families. However, if we are oblivious, and I think sometimes blissfully ignorant even, to the things that our families have taught us, to the dynamics and culture that we face within our families, then the biggest problem is that they become obstacles rather than helpers for us, rather than something that's going to help us. Once we become aware of them, whether they're, just awful, like abuse, neglect, serious family, verbal dynamics that were problematic, things like that, even those awful things, God will, use to show us what we need and to break down obstacles for us. But in the blissfully unaware, not paying attention to it phase or place in life, they really internally then just kind of scrap away at our being, and can really impact our language and the way we interact with the people in our present family or friendships, things like that. The same is true for really positive family dynamics. So you had a really great family dynamics, the culture that your parents set, it was just amazing and you really want to repeat it. That's great, but you have to be aware of it in order to be intentional about it. So what we're talking about with family dynamics is being aware. We're not necessarily judging it, good or bad or ugly. We're just being aware of them and knowing where they place obstacles and where they are helping us. Most of us, I mean, nearly 100% of us have a good percentage of both. Really difficult family stuff and really great family stuff. That is important that we have both. And I think sometimes we reside in the really extreme places. My family's just so great, I don't want to recognize the awful stuff. I don't want to talk about this way that my parents kind of messed me up. And then over here, or it's just so awful, whatever, I'm pushing it away. Residing in the middle. Residing in that middle ground of whatever it looked like and letting God work His stuff in it is really important. So bringing out family dynamics, super important. Okay, one of our viewers, Hannah, says, oh, it's hormones, or oh, it's stress, denying the existence of the bigger picture, I think, is what that is. And I think that is a really big thing where we, denial really is, I think if you want a visual for it, is like a pushing down. We want to push it down, and push it down. And the analogy I like to use then is they become ankle weights. Like we push it down so far that we have these giant weights around our ankles of maybe it is stress, maybe it is hormones, but if we ignore it, if we like just kind of keep pushing it and not getting the help we need, then they're just these weights that are weighing us down as we try to walk. But instead, letting them come up, letting them be, recognizing, oh, I might have some hormone stuff going on. Oh, I might have some stress going on. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a bigger picture. Being able to acknowledge that is pretty huge and takes that weight off of our ankles so we can walk freely. And that's what Jesus is all about, is walking freely, right? It is for freedom that Christ has set us free, is Galatians 5:1. Okay, another thing that is an obstacle is our value structure. So this is like kind of a hidden culture idea where we have certain things we believe in. And oftentimes we move through life very unaware of them. We're just like, it's very important that people are honest to us, for instance, but we don't like know that that's important to us. It's just something that is. It's like a state of being, like honesty is important to us. If we don't recognize our value structure, that will always be an obstacle. One reason, like we go to a counselor and we're like, well, I don't really like what they're saying. We're not gelling. A lot of that is value structure stuff. We see things from different values. So when we know our value structure, when we can say, oh, that hits on something for me, that's important to me. When we know that walking in to like meeting with our doctors, meeting with counselors, meeting with friends, whatever, then we're going to be in a better place in order to be able to take in the help, to take in relationship and be where we need to be with that. So that's an obstacle. Position or vocation. So a lot of times we let this get in the way. And I work in church worker wellness, so I'm all about we are not less broken. That's important for pastors. That's important for government leaders. That's important for teachers. That's important for doctors and nurses. That's important for anyone working in any service industry or field, like helpers, neighbors, anyone. We can't let our vocation get in the way of getting the help we need. Oftentimes, the vocation is that piece that tells us we need to look one way. Maybe even mom or dad or daughter or son. Those vocations, we don't want to get help because we don't want to look like the way we think we shouldn't look in that vocation. So don't let the vocation get in the way. Don't let that obstacle stop you from letting God in, letting him work, getting the resources we need. All right, a couple more. Unpleasant feelings. And this is where that denial and stuff comes into. Just unpleasant feelings. We don't want to feel uncomfortable. The idea of getting help, the idea of looking our stuff in the face at any level, whether like really just full face on or whether just peeking at it, like under a blanket of here's our stuff that's hard, is very uncomfortable. And if I have to sit in my emotions, wow, we like to like cry it out and move on or avoid the crying altogether, or we want to avoid anger altogether, so we like try to push it off, and then what happens, it just bubbles up and spews out a lot of times. What is your experience with uncomfortable emotions? What emotions are you avoiding? What unpleasant feelings also are you avoiding? That doesn't have to be an emotion, like a judgment from someone else. Are we so scared of it that we won't share our things with people that we can get help from? What other unpleasant feelings are there? Maybe you guys can share with me in the notes. What kinds of things are we trying to avoid that don't feel great when we need to ask for help? Rejection, that's a big one. That's one of those unpleasant feelings, but it has like a broader base. Like no one wants to be rejected. In mental health in particular, I think that there's that stigma attached to it, and we're trying to end it. There's a lot of work being done to like get rid of that stigma, because let's face it, your brain is an organ of your body. Your hormones are part of your body. Your stress neurons and all the stuff we have is part of our bodies. It's no different than any other health issue. It touches on our relationships, so it's so valuable, important to get the help we need with and for one another. Having that safe place where we can say, I'm suffering, I'm hurting, I don't know what to do, I need a little help. Even just like, I'm having a bad day. That's really important. And so having those places where we know are safe will help us be able to take the fear of rejection in kind of bigger places asking for help. So who's in your family? Who's in your friendship list? Who is part of your body of Christ, your church? Who is part of your community that feels safe for you? You know, knowing that and reflecting on that, where can you go first and ask them to help you get the help you need? That will minimize that obstacle. And the last one is not seeing results. It's so frustrating, isn't it? And we talked about this last week's, you know, we have to try and try again, because the first thing doesn't always work. And, you know, I really believe the hope I can give you here is that God is working in that. He never wastes any of that energy. He never wastes any of those connections and relationships we make along the way. So trying again. When you don't see the results, when you get frustrated, you know, it's not pull it up by your bootstraps and get back in there. We're not doing that. We don't believe in that. It is God will connect. God is working in these things. This life is super imperfect and super messy, but we would not want to miss those things because God is in the midst of what Psalm 46 says. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. And that's true of each one of us. Like, he is our foundation. The rest of it's going to be really messy, but he's definitely in the midst of it and working. Okay, I talked too long today. It's always great to be with you. If you have any questions, please throw them up. I'll see you next Monday for Mental Health Monday, and we'll start our series on emotions. See you next time.